under this area, we just need to discuss about thermoregulation and blood glucose regulation. So under homeostasis, we have to discuss about negative feedback, okay, and how the negative feedback mechanism is occurring. Okay, so we just need to indicate that the end goal of negative feedback is to correct the changes. Okay, so any stimulus or any changes are being returned back to normal by negative feedback. So any increase of something could be decreased using hormone, okay, and therefore returning it to normal condition. So we have to include as well the variables, just like what I said a while ago about thermoregulation and blood glucose concentration. So we have body temperature here. Okay, and blood glucose concentration. Okay, if we are able to provide diagrams for in explaining this these variables upon the regulation part of it, then it's better for us to be able to give this diagrams. So for example, in the case of blood glucose concentration, for example, whenever the blood glucose is high, okay, I usually use the seesaw approach, wherein, of course, in the seesaw there is an area there that is high and an area that is low. So here, if the blood glucose levels are high, then therefore insulin is going to be released, so that it's going to be returned back to normal. Okay, if the blood glucose is low, then glucagon is going to be released, so that it's going to be returned, low blood glucose levels. To return the blood glucose back to normal, it needs to increase the blood glucose by releasing glucagon. Okay, so by using this approach or different in a different diagram that we can actually come up with, then we are able to teach our students on how they are being learned in an easy way. So that will be all for nerves, hormones, and homeostasis. The last topic that we are going to discuss under the chapter Human Physiology, Health, and Reproduction is the reproduction part. So this is just the core part of reproduction, because the other details that is needed to be discussed is actually found in the next chapter, actually in the 12th chapter, which is the further human, essentially the extended part of human physiology. So this is actually being learned by both SL and HL students. So we just need to basically lay down all the basic information that is needed to be learned by both levels. So first, in reproduction, of course, it is very important to learn the structures that are included under both male and female reproduction by using a diagram. So, diagram of male and female reproductive system. Okay. So, of course, it is actually, it's not required for both students to draw the reproductive systems, but they need to be familiarized with all the structures. So it is also important that we show a diagram of both systems, of both types of reproductive systems. If we have a cross-section part and a longitudinal part, because sometimes in exams they either give both both examples of the diagram. So for the purpose of students labeling them. So of course, by laying down the diagram, the students should be able to know the structure, okay, label the structures that are involved in both reproductive systems, okay, and of course, familiarize themselves with the function of each. Okay, so in this area, we can also relate their basic knowledge on meiosis, because meiosis is a type of cell division that is used for sexual reproduction. So we can elaborate more about meiosis if we are teaching HO students. So here, so right after the familiarization of the reproductive systems, okay, we can now move on to the menstrual cycle. Okay. So under the menstrual cycle, there is a graph that is going to be given that shows the events that is going to happen in the ovary, in the uterine lining, and the hormones that is actually being used during this cycle. So we have to include. We have to show a graph of that, of the menstrual cycle. Okay, we have to include the hormones that are involved. So hormones such as FSH, LH, estrogen, and progesterone. We should be able to differentiate the function of each type of hormones, so that the student would further understand their roles in the menstrual cycle. So, okay. So once that we have already shown the graph and explained the hormones that is involved in this cycle, we can now annotate, okay, make an annotation of the events that is occurring in each, in a specific day in the cycle. Okay, so we have to highlight what is happening in the first few days. For example, in day 1 to day 5, there would be the shedding of the uterine lining or the endometrium through the process of menstruation. Okay, so another specific event that is occurring in here is in day 14, wherein ovulation is occurring. Of course, we also need to explain to the students what ovulation means, wherein this is actually the ejection of the mature ovum from the ovary. Okay, so it's actually going to be preparing for fertilization. Okay, so basically major events that is occurring in the menstrual cycle. So once that we have explained that, okay, we can actually give out questions that would that is relating to menstrual cycles. For example, what is going to happen to this specific date if the levels of hormones is increasing. So we also need to add on to the effects of other hormones, the effects of hormones to other hormones, because sometimes they can be an inhibitor, okay, or they can actually cause a negative feedback on that. Okay, so with that matter, we should also include or review the students about the negative feedback mechanism. Okay, so right after explaining the menstrual cycle, okay, we will briefly explain the roles of testosterone. Actually, we can explain this right after explaining the structure and the function of the male reproductive system. Okay, so it's basically, you can just like list down that those roles wherein, for example, in the case of testosterone, it actually initiates and maintains the growth and the development of the male reproductive system. It actually initiates the prenatal development of the male genitalia, of course in males, and of course maintains the libido or the sex drive in an adult. Okay, so the next area that we need to discuss under reproduction is the process of in vitro fertilization. So in the case of in vitro fertilization, we have to explain the significance of this process. Okay? So we just need to explain that in some couples that are not given the opportunity to produce or to conceive a baby, then they have this difficulty of producing a healthy egg cells and sperm cells. So what they did, what is actually being done is that this process is actually inducing the female to produce a lot of mature ovum, so that it would be used to be taken out from the ovary, and then it is going to be placed in a petri dish where it's going to be inserted with the healthiest sperm cells that is going to be acquired from the husband. Okay, so right after this, it is also important, of course, to explain the process. Okay. Okay, so this includes the hormones. Okay, the hormones that are going to be used and actually stopped, or actually the process that is going to be stopped. Okay, such as in a normal female, the normal menstrual cycle or the normal ovulation process is going to be stopped, and then there are other hormones such as synthetic FSH that is going to be injected towards the ovaries of the female so that it will produce a lot of mature ovum. Okay, so last but not the least, once that we have explained the process of in vitro fertilization or IVF, okay, there are also ethical issues, or there are things that is actually going to be raised in relation to this area. If the students would be able to list 3 ethical issues relating to IVF, then I think there will be, provided that they are, there are benefits and disadvantages that is being posed by this process, then I think it would be considered as a mark in IB as well. Okay, so that would be all for the reproduction part in human physiology.